Hello, everybody. Znam Vishivanki, and thank you so much for joining us for our weekly Thursday lecture here at Education USA Ukraine. As you all know, we have a different topic every week related to U.S. higher education. And today we have a really important and interesting topic. Students ask us all the time about studying medicine in the US or going into the healthcare field, but there's a lot to know as you're considering this option. So today we're lucky to be joined by Megan Mankerian-Stem and Amanda McHendry from Creighton University, and they're both going to tell us all about studying medicine in the US. They will have a presentation, and then at the end, we will turn to your questions. So please, during the presentation, feel free to write your questions in the chat box on YouTube, and we will turn to those after the presentation. So with that, Megan and Amanda, please take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. We're so excited to be here and to chat with you guys today. We are sitting in Omaha, Nebraska. So we are right in the middle of the US, where we're finally getting to springtime and nice weather. So we're excited to spend our morning for us with you guys. So as Nellie just mentioned, we're going to talk about opportunities in healthcare in the US with you guys. This is such a big topic, and I'm often asked when I travel around the world by students that they want to get into healthcare, they want to be a doctor, but there's so much to the process and so many other things that students can do in healthcare. So today we want to look at what some of those traditional pathways look like, as well as what some of the many other opportunities are that are out there. As Nellie mentioned, my name is Megan Mankerian-Stem. I am the Director of International Enrollment at Creighton University. I've worked in international education for about 10 years now. And a big part of my role right now at Creighton is I actually get to spend a lot of time traveling. In normal times, of course, I don't get to travel right now. And I work with students like you who are thinking about studying in the US and really trying to find a university that best fits their profile. And for a lot of students who look at us, they often ask us about our healthcare programs, since we do have a lot of different opportunities at Creighton. But we'll talk about those specifically a little later on. I'll let Amanda introduce herself as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for being here with us today. My name is Amanda McHendry. I have worked in higher ed for just over 10 years now, and in the last 5 years, I've been at Creighton University working in our undergraduate College of Arts and Sciences, which is where primarily our students who are pursuing careers in healthcare and medicine will begin. Each year at Creighton, we have over 100 students applying to medical schools and gaining admission to those programs in the U.S.
Awesome. So a lot of times when you start even Googling healthcare in the US or even medicine or medical school in the US, there's so many different terms that will come up and can be very, very overwhelming. Honestly, this was just a quick list of terms that I came up with in about 2 minutes. So really, if you spend more than 2 minutes even Googling or down some sort of online, rabbit hole, you might really start to get overwhelmed with all of the different opportunities and options that are out there. So first, we want to talk about some of the traditional pathways. So a lot of times students think, I want to be a doctor, but what does that actually look like in the US? It's a very unique process for students. So for students who are going into some of those traditional options, which would be medicine, dentistry, and pharmacy, it's actually a two-step process in the US. So first you go to your undergraduate university, you study your bachelor's degree, and then you go on to the professional school after that. The entire process altogether, depending on the program, could be anywhere from 6 to 8 years of just the education. And then after that, depending on which field you go into, you might have to do a residency after that, which could be anywhere from 2 years to even another 8 years, depending if you want to be a very specific field, such as like a pediatric neurosurgeon. That would be a very long process. But something like being a general family doctor might be a little shorter. But that adds on to the amount of time that you're studying before you can actually really practice on your own in the field. So I think sometimes a lot of students think, it's only going to be a 4 or 5 year process, but really, depending on what you want to do, it can take several years of education. Like I mentioned, so first you will do your bachelor's degree. And for that, you could go to almost any university you want in the US. Most schools, when you look at them, will have opportunities for pre-healthcare programs or pre-healthcare tracks. So what that really means is that during your bachelor's degree, for a lot of programs, you'll pick a major that you want to study. Most students stick with a science program, so biology, chemistry, biochemistry, neuroscience, psychology. But then on top of that, you will do your pre-healthcare program. So, for example, a student might want to be, thinking about that doctor track. So they might decide to study a major in biology and then do the pre-medicine track with it. One of the cool opportunities, though, in the US that you may know already is that our programs are also very flexible. So if you don't even want to study biology as your major, you don't have to. You can study English, you can study theater, you can even study business and still do the pre-medicine or pre-dentistry track with it. The pre-dentistry or pre-medicine track, that itself will actually get you the courses that you need to qualify to apply to any of these professional programs. So it'll take care of any of those prerequisites. And usually what you're looking at is a mix of different science courses. So, the general biology, general chemistry, organic chemistry, microbiology, courses like that, a mix of different maths courses as well. And then usually a social science like psychology. And then sometimes as well an English composition class because the professional school wants to know that you're able to write professionally as well.
Hey, Megan.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you just for a second.
No problem.
Just one technical thing. We are still only seeing the title slide.
Oh, no. Do you see it now?
On my end, I'm still seeing, there we go.
There we go. Great. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Please continue on.
No problem. So as I was saying, so the prerequisite courses will be taken care of as part of that pre-healthcare track. So you don't have to worry about making sure that you're taking those classes. That track and working with the advisor for that program will help make sure that you're doing all of those things. And then there's a lot of extracurricular activities that you'll also need to do in order to gain entrance into any of these professional programs. You can see a list there. I'm not going to go into detail about them right now because we're going to talk about this part a little later on in the presentation. But a big part of this is that the professional schools want to see that you're demonstrating leadership and passion for the field. Because getting into any of these traditional programs, the medicine, the dentistry, the pharmacy, it's a very competitive process in the US. So the programs themselves want to make sure that you're dedicated to the field. And so that way, when you're 2 years into medical school, that you're still going to love what you're doing and be passionate about it. There's a lot of other professional pathways, though, as well. You don't have to just be a doctor or pharmacist. There's other professional programs that you can look at that also get you into the healthcare field. This would still can be part of that two-step process, though. So you would still do your bachelor's degree, you would do the pre-healthcare track with this, and then you'd go into these programs. Some of the cool attributes about these programs, though, are that they're a little less time sometimes than going into medical school or dental school. So, for example, we have a lot of students going into physical therapy or occupational therapy. These programs are nice because you really get to work hands-on with patients over a long period of time and help them hit a lot of their goals, either in getting back to being an athlete or somebody maybe who's had a stroke and they're trying to regain use of some of their muscles. Physician's Assistant is a newer program in the US that's really gaining a lot of speed. The cool thing about Physician's Assistant is that once you complete the program, you're able to do a lot of the same things that a doctor can do. The limitations really come in being able to prescribe certain levels of medication. But it's nice because, once again, it's a shorter option. It saves you time and money. But you can still do a lot of the same things. You still work with a hospital or in a doctor's office and work directly with patients. Rehabilitation sciences is similar to physical therapy, but this one in particular is useful for international students, depending on what level of certification you need in your home country. Sometimes if you need to go the full physical therapy route, because that is technically a doctorate program, you might have to do the full physical therapy. But if you only need a master's level program, you could do a rehabilitation sciences program. But as I mentioned, a lot of these programs they're a lot less time and less money. And once you graduate, you can begin in the field immediately. You don't have to do a residency before you really become, a full doctor. Some of the challenges, though, for international students with these programs is that since some of them are a little newer, they don't necessarily exist in some students' home countries. So, for example, if you decide that you want to go into physician's assistant, you may be able to work in the US, but that degree may not translate back to your home country or the country that you want to practice in. So those are the types of things that you do have to pay attention to. Same as I was just mentioning about the physical therapy and the rehabilitation sciences. It really will depend on where you want to practice and what's going to be accepted. The other challenge is that some of these programs don't accept international students. And a big part of that is because since they are newer, these programs have to go through a full accreditation process and a full cycle, which sometimes can be up to 5 years, before they'll allow international students to enroll. So for those of you who are in high school right now and thinking about potentially doing these programs, by the time you go to apply, at that point, they may be accepting international students at some universities, or you just may have a lot more options across the US in these fields. As I mentioned, though, there's so many opportunities in healthcare in general. I put a bunch of different career pathways up here that sometimes a lot of students don't necessarily think about. A lot of students in high school think, I want to be in healthcare, so I have to be a doctor, that's the only option out there. But really, there's hundreds of different opportunities. The cool thing about studying in the US, and I mentioned this a little bit already, is the flexibility in our programs. It's nice that you can come to the US and you can start in a pre-medicine track. But, if you decide, I really want to go into biomedical engineering, or I really want to go into athletic training, it's very easy to change between programs and pivot what you're studying and what you want to do. You will have advisors who really help make sure that you're exploring all of these different opportunities and really get into the field that you want to get into and that you're passionate about. So if you're in high school right now and you're thinking, I know I want to be in healthcare, I've been thinking about being a doctor, but you're not really sure, that's okay. You don't have to decide right now what you want to do. You can start at the university and then kind of try some things on and do some things exploring at that time. And I don't want to leave out the business field either, because there's growing opportunities, especially in business and healthcare right now. We're seeing a lot of growth in the US, especially in the healthcare administration and leadership fields. A big reason for this right now is because traditionally in the last 20 years or so, hospital systems tend to have been run by doctors who they, have been doctors for a long time. They're thinking about retiring, but don't necessarily want to step away from the hospital quite yet. So they tend to move into leadership positions. However, hospitals are also businesses. So there's a lot to manage there, especially in the US, because our healthcare system is incredibly complicated. So they need people who specialize in understanding the systems of a hospital and how to maximize patient health care, supporting the staff and the doctors, liaison with the insurance companies, working with the city to make sure if they need to expand, things like that. So there's a lot of growth in the administration field for that specialty to come in and really help manage hospital systems. And then, like a lot of fields, you'll see a lot of growth as well in the data side of it. Data is such a big, important part of business now, and being able to understand the tech side and how to maximize a lot of this growth. So, even if you're thinking you really love business, you love working with people, and maybe some of that negotiation factor, but you still also are passionate about the healthcare field, that's awesome. There's so many opportunities for that as well. I'm going to turn it over to Amanda now, and we're going to talk a little bit about the things that you could be doing now in high school to prepare to study at the university level.
Thank you, Megan. One of the first things that I want to say, and this is the teacher in me, it's the advisor in me, that above everything else that you're doing outside of your schoolwork, that really focusing on your academics, doing well in your classes, not just getting good grades, but also really learning and remembering the content that is in your classes is so important. In the US, any of these healthcare professional programs, many of them are very competitive, and the most important things that it comes down to, in addition to some of the things I'm going to talk about, are having a really strong GPA, having good grades, having that great academic foundation. So I never want to not focus on that, because it is such an important piece, as well as the things that you can do to help you explore and know that this is a career path that you might want to choose, as things that help build a resume around helping you look like a good candidate to applying to these programs when you get to that point. So there are many things that students can do beginning in high school, as well as things that you can do at the university level, and we're going to talk about both of them here today. Job shadowing is so very important to really helping you understand, what does a doctor actually do all day? I know when I go to the doctor, they come in the room, they talk to me, they do the physical exam, they leave. But what do they do in between when they are seeing patients? So getting to actually understand what happens in a full day or multiple days in a certain career is something that will really help you know and understand that this is a path that you want to pursue. I think one of the things students think about is like, well, how do I possibly go about arranging job shadowing? And one of the things I always recommend to students is to just first look around the community around you, your parents or your parents' friends or your friends' parents. Who do you know who is working in one of those fields? And usually it is just as simple as asking the question that if you could come and shadow. I also think about your school community or a church community or the communities, your neighbors. You never know who might be willing to let you come shadow unless you ask the question. The next thing is internships, and this is going to be hands-on professional experience, whether that is in a hospital setting, in a clinic setting, in a potentially business setting that has a healthcare focus. These internships are going to give you exposure to the field and really help you see kind of at that next higher level of what happens day to day. The next thing that I would say is getting involved in volunteering in your community. And in particular, medical schools in the U.S. want to see that our students have given of their time in other ways beyond just what they are doing at university. So getting out and serving in your community. One example that I think that comes to mind right away of one of the students that I've worked with is this is not, wasn't a specific healthcare related volunteer opportunity, but they worked in a volunteer kind of long-term, would go about once a week to a nursing home here in Omaha, working with the elderly population. And this student was going on the track to become a dentist, is going to apply to dental school. And while he wasn't doing anything at the site with regards to, teeth or teeth cleaning or any dental care, when he reflected back on the experience, he learned about communicating with the elderly population. He learned about some of the healthcare needs that the people in the community living there had, and that those things helped him as he went on to dental school really understand how to work with patients of all different ages and background. And then the last thing is to start thinking about if you're looking at colleges and universities in the United States, what kind of school would help you best support your goals? A couple of things that I would encourage you to think about is looking at universities that either have a medical school or professional schools at them that are connected to a hospital system. So at Creighton, for example, we work with a hospital system here in Omaha called CHI Health. And so it gives our students great access to be able to volunteer, to be able to do job shadowing, to be able to get internships, because we have that built-in connection with the hospital system here. So that's something to consider as you're looking at universities in the U.S. The other thing I would say is considering the size and location of the cities that these universities are in. For example, I went to a school that was in a city of 7,000 people, where Omaha is a city of about 1 million people. So the number of hospitals and clinics that our students have access to in comparison to what the pre-med students at my university were able to access at the small hospital in the city that we were in, those opportunities are really important to consider as well. Okay, and so related to this, when you are at the university studying for your bachelor's degree, there are a couple of additional things. There are many things that you may continue on doing from high school to college. We want students to continue doing job shadowing, getting, one of the things is there are lots of specialties in medicine. So getting a chance to shadow a pediatrician or obstetrician or seeing all the different areas of medicine that are out there will help you really start to think about what path you may want to take. You don't have to make that decision for quite a while once you are in medical school, but having the exposure to those areas is going to help you when you get closer to having to make that decision. So those things are things that you'll continue doing in your undergraduate and your bachelor's degree program. One of the major things that is in addition to what students can do at the university level is getting involved in research programs. So at universities, there are faculty who are actively doing research. They are running labs, creating new knowledge, working towards developing new therapies, new drugs, all sorts of different kinds of research that happens at the university level. And our students are able to be involved in that research as assistants. They're also able to develop their own research projects of things that are of interest to them. So what I will note is what that looks like for students varies a lot depending on the kind of university that you are studying at. So at some places, as a undergraduate student, you may only get to do some data entry and cleaning lab equipment. And the benefit is that you get to be in the lab and see and be exposed to the experience, where on to the other side of that is being a part of developing the experiment, running the experiments, and then writing and presenting the results of that at conferences globally, as well as publishing that research in academic journals. So a couple of examples of research that I have seen students that I have worked with be involved in. So one of our faculty members in our psychological science department is developing a new therapy for PTSD. And this has been an ongoing project involving universities, a few faculty researchers at universities around the world. And one of our students was deeply involved in the project from its very first stages all the way through to the point at which they were working to publish an article about it. And in the academic world, the first author of an article is really important. So our undergraduate student was published in the APA, which is the American Psychological Association journal, which is like the top journal for psychology in the US. He was published as the first author of an article. And that's the kind of thing, when you get to applying to medical school, is going to really make you stand out on the application process. And it is such an amazing opportunity in terms of really learning all about that process as well. Another example is we have a faculty member who is doing cancer research, and he is trying to find out how and really learn and understand why chemo affects the muscles when a person is having chemo treatment. So they are doing, at the moment, it is rat trials. So they're giving chemo to rats, and then they're studying how the muscles are degrading during the chemo treatment. And their goal is to try and find, what are low impact exercises? Where are the places that you might be able to actually intervene to help with the muscle loss so that a person who is receiving chemo doesn't experience that kind of muscle loss throughout that program. One last example, and it's another kind of cool one that hits the healthcare kind of aspect and links with business and technology. So a group of our faculty and students in our exercise science department worked with a company in Japan who is developing a new sports watch, like Apple Watch or Fitbit, anything like that. And so our team of faculty and students were actually doing the testing of the technology and kind of making sure from all standpoints that not only is the technology really working, but they're able to develop new and exciting ways to track fitness from a device on your wrist. So those are just a few examples of the kinds of research that students are able to get involved in. What's most important is you choose to be involved in research because it's something that is interesting to you, that's something you really want to do. In the US, there are also opportunities to have your research be a paid position. So many faculty have grant-funded funds through like the National Institute for Health or other. We have at Creighton some funding through NASA, so our students are able to actually receive either a stipend or an hourly wage for the research that they do. There are also summer programs in the US. They're called SURFs. They're Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowships. And so students would spend their time over the summers conducting research at the university as well. Just a note about internships and job shadowing. Many universities in the U.S. have a career center, which is an office on their campus that is there to help students find those types of opportunities, to help them find internships, to help them write their resumes and work on their applications and do a practice interview when they go to want to do those processes. And then the last thing is test preparation. So any of the professional schools that Megan has talked about, medicine, pharmacy, dentistry, they all have a required test. The MCAT is for medicine, the PCAT is for pharmacy, and the DAT is for dentistry. And this is a huge part of that application process. And there are lots of ways students prepare for these tests, similar to how someone might study for the SAT or ACT. There are courses students can enroll in. There are self-study plans. Specifically at Creighton, we do a couple of things in terms of helping students develop their plans for studying. And then one of the things that we do is an on-campus test exam, and we do everything to replicate what the experience of taking, for example, the MCAT is like an 8-hour exam. So to replicate what the experience is, so if you leave, how it's timed, when you get breaks, what the proctor will do in the room, that's to kind of get your head in the space of what that experience will be like, so that you know exactly kind of what you're walking into.
Awesome. So we're going to turn a little bit and talk a little bit about Creighton University, and why we're really here talking about healthcare. So we were actually started almost 150 years ago now, and we're very well known in the healthcare and science industry in the U.S., as well as an institution where a lot of students come for our professional programs. We are a Catholic Jesuit institution, which means a couple things for our campus. One, we have a beautiful church right in the middle of campus. They do host a lot of activities, both for people who are Catholic and for students who are non-Catholic who want to be involved in the church as well. Total on campus, we have over 150 different academic programs. It's nice, when I was talking earlier about that flexibility, that you really have the opportunity to explore different majors and different pathways. And it makes it much easier to say, maybe you do want to be an English major, but go to medical school. There's lots of flexibility within those programs. Total on campus, we have almost 9,000 students. This is both an undergraduate and graduate. Our students come from all 50 states of the US, as well as about 50 countries, which is nice for the diversity of campus. For a school our size, we do consider ourselves to be pretty diverse, especially because over 80% of our students come from outside of our state. So even as an incoming first-year university student, if your roommate is a US citizen, there's actually a good chance that they may not be from Omaha either. So this means that our students really go through a lot of those growing, I don't want to say growing pains, but that growth together as a first-year student, where you may not be able to easily go home for a weekend, or mom and dad, can't just pop in and take you out to dinner. So our students really grow together. It creates a really strong community on our campus. We do have smaller class sizes and an 11-to-1 student to faculty ratio, which means that we really try hard to make sure that you are getting individualized attention from faculty and staff. Our faculty members will go out of their way to not just know your name, but they'll really want to know what your goals are. What do you want to do after you graduate? And they will make sure that you're getting those opportunities both in research or networking, for internships, things like that. So that way you are successful after university. We have 3 main undergraduate colleges. So the College of Arts and Sciences, where Amanda mentioned, a lot of our students who are going into healthcare usually are in the major within the College of Arts and Sciences. We have our Heider College of Business, where it's also possible to major in like management or marketing and still do one of those pre-healthcare tracks. And then we also have our College of Nursing. And then on the graduate level and professional school level, we have lots of different options. And that's why we're often talking about healthcare, because we have a lot of students who will come to us for the undergraduate programs and then apply and stay at one of our professional programs. So we have dentistry, medicine, occupational therapy, physical therapy, pharmacy, physician's assistant, as well as several different business programs, law, data analytics, and a lot of other science research graduate programs. One of the things that I believe personally that really helps our students be successful is in our Creighton Edge. And this kind of overcompasses a few different things. And Amanda really mentioned that this is a very key piece of students doing kind of those extra things that really set you apart in the process of applying for medical school or dental school. So we have our Academic Success Center, which does tutoring for students. So if you're in a class and you really just need a little bit extra time or help with somebody on a certain concept or chapter, they will either have pre-set up hours for your class for tutoring, or they can help you find a tutor for that subject. The Career Center is another big component to the EDGE. In this, really, I encourage students to start visiting the Career Center their very first semester of college. I think a lot of students think, oh, it's, focused on getting a career after you're completing your university, so they wait till their final year. But really, they do so many things starting your first semester to start really building your credentials, your resume, you're practicing to prepare for a lot of these things. So for example, you can go in and do a resume workshop or a cover letter writing workshop, or learn what does professional dress mean in the US. They also host career fairs every semester, so you could go and practice networking with different organizations, including healthcare organizations. They will do practice interviews for jobs and internships and your graduate school interviews. So really getting you prepared for either an internship or a job after university. If you decide that you may want to work before you go into a professional school, they will make sure that you're prepared for those things. And then the pre-professional advising, and this is really key for our students who are looking to go into professional school. We do a great job of really making sure our students are doing all of those extra things. So as we've mentioned multiple times now, the job shadowing, the research, the internships, you will have actually 2 different advisors at Creighton. So you'll have your major advisor, and then you'll have a pre-professional advisor to lean on as well. And they will help you every semester make sure that you're taking the prerequisite classes you need to, as well as getting involved in all of those extra things, or getting hooked into the, as we were talking about the professional exams, the MCAT or the PCAT practice sessions. So that way, when you're ready to apply for that professional program, which actually happens between your 3rd and 4th year of university, you are set and ready to go. And really, these are the big factors why I believe our students do so well in getting into professional programs. So for example, last year, over 70% of our pre-medicine students were accepted into a medical program in the US. The national average is much closer to 30% of students actually get accepted to programs. So we have a very good rate of our students doing well in these programs. We're also special in that many of our professional programs, including our medical school, does accept international students as well. So not only, at most medical schools in the US, they only look at US citizens, but we're very popular for students to come for our undergraduate pre-professional programs and then stay and apply for our professional programs as well, which is awesome. And then, as Amanda talked about, we have the CURIS, the Center for Undergraduate Research and Scholarship. And this really helps students as well get involved in research, which at Creighton you can do starting your very first semester. So if you maybe had an idea for a research project in high school, you can go into their office day 1 of being on campus, and they can help get you set up and potentially actually starting that research project, helping you find a space or getting you connected to a faculty member who might have more information or have done a similar project, things like that. So it's great that they can really start getting you those hands-on experiences that really help support what you would do with your pre-professional advisor right away your first semester. College isn't all just about studying. We do have a lot of fun activities as well. We have over 250 different clubs and organizations on campus. So I tell students between the different clubs and organizations, and then everything else that happens on campus, like the concerts, the speakers, the different festivals that we have, if you're bored, you're doing something wrong, because there's always something to do on campus. We have a great international student organization as well. So if you really want to share your culture and your heritage on campus, there's lots of opportunities for that as well. We're a big sports school too. So if you really love athletics, we could be a great fit for that. So one cool thing about our university, so we don't have a traditional American football team. So our big fall sport is actually soccer. So if you're a big soccer fan, we can really be a fun school. The picture you're seeing right now is of our basketball stadium. So we are a Division I university for athletics, and a couple of our teams tend to be top in the nation. So So, for example, our men's basketball going into the next year's athletic cycle, we are ranked number 4 in the nation right now, which is pretty awesome. If the NCAA tournament had happened this past spring, we were supposed to do really well. So we're a little sad that it didn't happen. Last year as well, our men's soccer team at one point was ranked number 7 in the nation. Our women's volleyball is usually ranked very high. I think at one point last year they were ranked number 9 in the nation. But the coolest part for you as a student is that you can go to all these games for free. You just show your ID. You can be actually sitting where, this picture is taken as part of the student section. You can be on ESPN. It's a lot of fun. So a lot of students also ask me why Omaha. A lot of people have never even heard of Omaha until they've met me. So Omaha is right in the middle of the U.S. We are such a cool city, and I'll be completely honest. So I've lived in Omaha for almost 3.5 years, and I moved here from Chicago. I was very worried about moving from a big city like Chicago to a smaller city like Omaha. But I have to say, I have been pleasantly surprised by this city. So Omaha has about 1 million people. It's a little larger than what a lot of people assume. We are a top city in the world for Fortune 500 companies, which a lot of people don't realize. But if you want to get some of that hands-on experience, especially if you're thinking maybe the healthcare administration side, you can get such cool hands-on opportunities at top companies in the world. We are the number 1 city for paid internships, which is awesome for you as a student. So that way, if you're doing an internship, we believe that you should be paid for it, but also you can be paid pretty well. We're a top city for college graduates, a top city for millennials to get hired. But my all-time favorite fact about Omaha is that we are the number 2 foodie city in the U.S. So if you like to eat, this is a great place to be. We have enough restaurants in this city that you can go to breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day for a year and never go to the same restaurant twice. And because we're a very diverse city, you can get food from almost anywhere in the world you want. So if you really have a craving for Thai food or French food, you can get anything here, which is awesome. So for the application process, it's a pretty straightforward process. You can either apply through the Common App or our own application. We don't preference either option, and either way is free to apply. We need a personal statement or essay that talks about what you're passionate about, why you're thinking about applying or attending Creighton, and really what you want to do in your future. We do not require the SAT or ACT, so it is an optional process for us. If you take it and you feel good about your scores, you should absolutely submit them. But if you take it and you're not happy with your scores, or if you're not able to take it, especially at a time like right now when the exam has been canceled for a while and it may be difficult to take it later on, you don't have to stress about it. You don't have to submit these scores. We do need your high school transcripts and a letter of recommendation that can either come from your counselor or it can come from a teacher. And then the one additional thing is we do need an English language exam. So that could be either the TOEFL, the IELTS, or Duolingo. And going back to, it's hard right now to take exams, so Duolingo is a great option because you can take it from home. You don't have to go anywhere. You can just sit in your bedroom, shut your door, make sure your mom doesn't bother you. And it takes about an hour to take. And then the nice thing is I also get your scores in about 48 hours. So it's a very fast turnaround for that. Our applications open on August 1st, but we do tell students to try to apply at the latest by December 1st. And really, this is because it's our final priority deadline for admission and our special programs and scholarships. And really, that's because our special program deadline is January 5th. So we want to make sure that you have enough time once we review your application and you're admitted, that if you want to apply for any of our special programs, like our honors program,
Oh, Megan, I think we may have lost you. I'll just jump in real quick to finish out the last bit of her presentation. So the January 5th deadline. And then the last part is May 1st, which is the United States national decision deadline for students to make their decision about where they will attend university for the next year. Megan, did you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I'm sorry, I was temporarily kicked out. We'll get to the last slide, which is really just my contact information. So if you have any questions about Creighton or anything we talked about today, you can reach me at my email address anytime. I also encourage you to follow us on social media so you can learn more about the fun things that our students are doing. Otherwise, we'll turn it back over to Nellie if we have any questions. We're happy to sit around and help answer your questions for a little while.
Thank you both so much for that informative presentation. That was really helpful, I know, for me as well as an advisor. And so if anyone, for those of you who are watching online, please feel free to type your questions into the chat box and we will answer them. I see we have some comments. Someone says, thank you for such full and complete information. And Constantine is excited that you have a good soccer team. So I think one thing that I wanted to highlight is that, based on what you said, is that, you know, there's a lot of room for discovery for students on the undergrad level, right? So that if a student doesn't know if they want to study medicine or isn't exactly sure what exactly they want to study, you know, they don't really have to make that decision to go to medical school until their third year, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's one of the nice things about the U.S. higher education system in general.
Oh, it looks like Megan got froze again. Yeah, I'll just jump in. You know, it's so true. And I know it's hard. It's hard for students in the U.S. It's hard for students around the world to hear you feel like you need to know exactly what you're going to do right now because everyone is asking you, what are you going to do? And what is nice is that the way our system is set up, it gives you some time. You're going to be taking those prerequisite courses and completing a major, but that next step, that commitment to apply to medical school, isn't until that third year. Making sure you're taking the right courses to stay on that path is important. Mm-hmm. But that you don't have to make that decision. And lots of our students change their mind, or they think they want to do medicine and then they decide dentistry, or they just go to physician assistant, and that there's some fluidity to being able to decide what you want to do a little bit later.
Right. Mm-hmm. Margarita has a question here. I'm a third-year medical school student. How can I pursue further studies in the States?
That is definitely a question for
Megan. Okay, great. Hopefully we'll get Megan back in here, Margarita, and we can answer your question. Do you... Speaking of in the ways that you evaluate applications from international students, do you evaluate them any differently from domestic students besides looking for, of course, an English language component?
So at Creighton, our application process is a holistic process for our undergraduate students. So we are looking at your academic background, how you've done in your courses. We're looking at some of the kind of extracurriculars that you maybe have been involved in. Creighton is a test optional school for U.S. students as well, for ACT and SAT. Mm-hmm. Really, we don't do anything differently in how we evaluate international students to our domestic students.
Okay. Megan, are you back?
I am. Apparently my computer doesn't want to wake up this morning.
No worries. So we have a couple of questions specific to medicine. Margarita asks, I am a third-year medical school student, and what is the best way to pursue further studies?
So I think there's a couple options if you've already started medicine in your home country. So one would be you could look up medical schools in the US that may allow you to come do additional training in your residency with them in the US. There aren't a lot of medical schools that offer this for international students, but there are a few. So you just need to start reaching out to some and figure out if that's an opportunity. Another option is you could look for other PhD programs in like a specific science field that you might be interested in. So for example, you could do like a PhD in biomedical sciences and continue to do research and get your feet wet in the field that way. It really is sometimes once you get your PhD, depending on what kind of program you go into, you could still be hired in a hospital setting to work in their labs and research within the hospitals. So it doesn't limit you necessarily on not, being able to work in a hospital or get experience in a hospital in the US.
So yeah, sometimes we have students ask us about completely or fully completing medical school in their home country and then going to do a residency. And so the best way to do that would be to look through specific universities. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. We had another question here. Artem asks, is the process of becoming a veterinarian the same as becoming a human doctor?
I'll let Amanda talk about this because we do have a lot of pre-veterinary students as well.
It's at least in the 4 years of undergraduate studies, it's very similar. A lot of the prerequisite courses are the same. The biology, the chemistry, the organic chemistry. Instead of taking a human anatomy class, you take an animal anatomy class. So there are a lot of similarities. In the US, there are fewer veterinary schools than there are medical schools. So it's a also very competitive process for students to apply. Creighton does not have a veterinary school. But we do have students who go along that path, and we help them get that exposure as well with all of the same things: job shadowing, volunteering. So the process looks very similar.
Is it the same number of years of education after undergrad?
I think so. I think it might be 3 or 4.
Okay. Fantastic. All right. Good. Margarita says, thank you. So we'll do a last call for questions on YouTube. So if you have any questions, this is your last chance. But of course, Megan and Amanda both had their contacts up there, so you can reach out to them. Are there some 2-year degrees in healthcare that students could pursue at a community college, more technical fields, I guess?
Yeah, there's some opportunities for that, especially if you're looking maybe at nursing. There are 2-year programs where you can go be like a nursing tech or a nursing aide in a hospital. I have seen students do this pathway, do the 2-year program, get a little bit of work experience in the field because your OPT would let you work for a year. So you could work for a year, get some experience, earn some money as well, and then go back to school and finish your bachelor's of nursing in a program that would let you come back and finish basically the last 2 years at that point. And then you would once again have your OPT available for you to work for another year and decide what you want to do at that point.
Wonderful. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions. So thank you so much. Of course, this is an important topic as we need people in the healthcare field right now. So thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today. And if anyone watching has any questions in the future, you can reach out to Amanda and Megan with their contacts they left on the screen, or you can reach out to Education USA Ukraine and we can get you in touch with them. And this video will be up on our YouTube if you want to go back and review any information. So thank you both so much. Do you have any final comments, thoughts, advice?
My biggest piece of advice is to keep your options open, especially, in this field, like we've mentioned many times, that there's so many different opportunities that if you're thinking about healthcare, you don't just have to be a doctor. If that's what you want to do and you're passionate about it, absolutely go for it. But really, there's just so many different opportunities to be in the field. So don't be afraid to job shadow and explore and do research, reach out to universities, learn what their students have been doing. Don't hesitate to contact us.
I would say just work hard and also make sure you're excited about what you're deciding to do. I know it's hard to always know that, but thinking about what you're going to do for a career, you want to get excited about it and not just choose it because you think that it's something that will help you make money or that will make your parents happy or will look good on a resume. You have to want to do the work and be excited about that career.
Wonderful. Great advice for all of us, I think. Thank you both so much. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe and healthy out there.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you both. Bye-bye.